Hey, friends, welcome to another episode of the show. I'm Joe, and I'm just tickled pleased to have, somebody that I deeply respect. And I've been hustling this guy for a while to come and join us. But you think about private education, it's closing campuses. Hundreds of small colleges are going to disappear in the next decade. Take my word. And then there's Concordia University of St. Paul. Doubled enrollment, literally doubled enrollment from 3,000 to 6,000 students, while every competitor was just retreating, leading from their back foot, just cutting tuition. And that's what CSP has done. They actually cut tuition in every student that is enrolled, while that sector of education is raising tuition everywhere you look. In fact, it's the number one private university in Minnesota for social mobility. 95% of graduates are employed within 9 months. Have you ever experienced anything like that before? We're gonna pull the truth out of the man that has been responsible for creating the culture, creating the conditions, creating the strategic priorities to see that happen. Reverend Dr. Brian Friedrich, 10th president, right, of Concordia University, St. Paul, and class of 1979. Welcome to the show, friend.
Hey, good morning, Joe. Great to be with you. Thank you.
Let's start right here. 2012, before you even arrived, your predecessor made a decision that broke every rule, I think, in the higher education playbook. He cut tuition by $10,000 for every student already enrolled, not just the incoming freshmen. I understand it's everyone across the board. When the rest of higher ed was really just jacking up prices, and the consultants probably said it's all going to backfire. The students or family are going to perceive all of this as an education that is actually worth less
Mhm.
or worthless, however you want to look at it. Enrollment climbed to an all-time high the following year. You inherited this bet that was doubled down, sir. Um, how are you sustaining that, and how did you walk into the interview process knowing that this is what you were going to inherit and would have to sustain?
Yeah. So I thank God for Tom Reese. So one of the dirty secrets behind the tuition reduction is this, Joe, that President Reese and the team recommended to the board a $5,000 decrease. And the board came back, which was chaired by Brad Hewitt, the CEO of Thrivent at the time, and said, if you're going to do this, go big or go home.
Oh wow.
We're going to do 10. We're
Oh
going to do
wow.
10. Yeah. So it's really a powerful story about team working together, being aligned, being on the same page. And we bear the fruits of that team effort today. So I know you're all about teams. This is a great example of how a team can work together to accomplish incredible results.
I understand that 51% more first year students enrolled the following year
Yep.
after you chose to go big.
Right. Right.
That is otherworldly. I mean, I tell you what, I mean, faith guides my steps, but that is one of the most faith filled moves for an institution that I've ever heard about.
And I think at the core of what we did, what we are, and what we will be for the future is students. Students are at the core.
Yeah.
So it was our strong belief, and I shared it uh, and share it, that the model that most higher education institutions are using is broken. It's just broken. And when we poll, when we research, the number one issue for students is affordability.
Right.
And we wanted to make sure we were laser focused on our students' number one issue, and that's affordability. So this is one way to do that.
And I can tell our listeners with legit credibility that for a number of years I was employed by your institution as an adjunct professor, and you also pay your people on the inside uh, at market rate. So it's not
Right.
like you're stealing from your
No.
team in order to benefit the students. You've figured out, you've calculated, and to a degree that is well calibrated to support
Right.
all.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that we not that we work to keep it hidden, but is really beneath what has sustained our ongoing commitment to affordability. There are all kinds of structural policy things that we just do differently than most higher education that enable us to be incredibly agile and innovative all the time. It's not episodic.
Yes.
It is all the time.
Which,
It's a
which is also
continuum.
quite unique for higher ed because we become
Mhm.
pretty calcified to here's how we always, and it becomes the culture of
Right.
rigidity of we've never done that before. So the fact that you've moved with culture, and culture is very fluid, but you also are solidly committed to a vision and a mission and a core value that also differentiates how how you behave and the level of resolve that you bring to all situations. So commendable. Let's talk about that social mobility piece.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad you started that because here's the deal. Social mobility is not a goal for us. We have three goals in our strategic plan, just three. And they're pretty simple. The one is grow enrollment. The second is deliver a career connected curriculum. And the third is work as hard as we possibly can to help students achieve their number one goal, a degree in
Right.
whatever program they're in.
Right.
That's it.
That's why they're
So,
there.
yeah.
The
So in
student
many ways,
experience is important, but in the end of the day, I need your signature on that piece of paper, sir.
yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. So the social mobility piece, Joe, really is it lags. And here's maybe one way that CSP is different. Again, I've worked in several with several institutions of higher education, so I can't speak for all 3 or 4 thousand of them. But one of the things that we do is keep a crystal clear focus on those three goals. If, for example, we had social mobility as a goal, that could lead us into all kinds of paths that may not enable us to achieve the goal, as goofy as that sound. So it's a benefit of making sure we're laser focused on the three goals that we have.
It really is. If you think about, you've got lead measures and lag measures. Your
Yeah,
lead measures,
right,
they're like you said, it's not necessarily social mobility, but it's a it's a variable that comes alongside probably
right,
that third goal that you
right.
shared there, and
Yeah,
that's
it's
where wisdom at the top really comes into
right,
play. So we're not linear thinking. Okay,
right,
this will lead to this, will lead to this. No, it's more of a dynamic. It really is the dynamic of our decision making, which only comes from wisdom.
right.
And it's hard to find the right book to read to gain that level of wisdom outside of perhaps the book of Proverbs. But
Right, right.
wow.
Yeah, it's absolutely a lagging indicator. And maybe your listeners would be wondering, well, why in the world doesn't CSP have a financial goal as one of its key goals in its strategic plan? Well, it's a similar reason that the financial piece really needs to lag or follow the other more important goals. So if we're recruiting more students, if we're delivering the kind of curriculum that prepares students for the world in which they're going to live, if we're doing everything we possibly can to help students graduate, we are confident that the finances follow, and we can prove that in spades. So we're very, very healthy financially. We're able to continue to reinvest in developing new programs in the infrastructure that we have, build out our technology. It's really a fun and dynamic place to be, again, because of the focus that we have.
I can tell that you are having fun. You are
Yeah.
having more fun than a corn farmer in Nebraska might be having,
Yeah.
huh?
Well, I had fun there too, but
I know you did. I know you did. And here's probably what nobody's talking about. You mentioned, one of the board members being a CEO, and if this level of macro change isn't always happening under the direct watch of an ordained Lutheran pastor. Okay.
mm, yeah,
So
yeah,
MDiv, Concordia Seminary, most
mhm,
university presidents are coming out of the provost pipelines or academic affairs or maybe even faculty governance, but they never left campus. You come from a different place and have what is your advantage, do you believe, to coming in from the cloth, if you will, rather
yeah.
than rather than the institution?
Yeah, one of the great things about being a Lutheran is we espouse the doctrine of vocation, God's call. God's call. That
Vocari,
he
right? Isn't it vocari?
yeah,
It's the
yeah,
Latin, I believe, which is an
yeah,
element of
vocari,
worship.
vocatio,
Yeah, it's an element of worship. So work
yeah.
is not a four-letter word.
So God gifts each person individually. And so one of my favorite verses is Ephesians 2, verse 10, that God has prepared in advance for us good works to do for him.
Yeah.
Good works don't save us, but God created us for more than just being consumers. He's created us to serve others, to serve him. So I think that's that's my goal in life is to do the best I can to serve others, help them achieve their goals, do the things that I think God has prepared for me in advance to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back on that a little bit. I did
Yeah,
a long book report called A Dissertation on Servant Leadership and how
yeah,
those
mhm,
characteristics lead to results, but some pushed back on me and said, "Servant leadership is kind of squishy today. It
mm,
doesn't quite challenge the institution in a way that it's accepting of all things that can be seen as a bit passive." My mind might drift to my local Lutheran pastor, who's
yeah,
very kind, very compassionate, very, just at my bedside if I need something, but not somebody that's going to poke me in the nose and go, you know what? We need to be doing better in this, that, and the other things in
yeah,
terms of operations. Help me understand where that Lutheran pastor approach also has the ability to, crack the whip and
right.
get things going.
Well, one of the things that's probably not on my resume is that my mother was a farmer's daughter, and I grew up in rural Iowa. And you learn in rural Iowa the beauty and joy of hard work. And for some of the local farmers that I worked for, my dad was a pastor, full disclosure. He wasn't a farmer, but I worked for any number of area farmers. And they weren't at all shy to tell me, this is what we're doing today. And if I didn't quite get it done or done the way they wanted it done, because most Iowa farmers have a particular way of doing things,
I've
they
seen
helped
those
me
cornfields.
see. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. They helped me see uh, how improvement could be made.
Absolutely. I've only seen mown grass alongside of a cornfield in Iowa, and
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah.
golf
Yeah.
course
Yeah.
quality. It's
Absolutely.
amazing. So I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Above your head right now is a picture of your grandfather, if
Yep.
I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
Reverend Walter Friedrich.
Right.
Uh, he attended then Concordia College, St. Paul,
Correct. Yeah.
right? In the early 1920s. This is fascinating. This is absolutely returning home here. He spent 54 years in the ministry. Um, your father became a pastor. You
Yeah.
became a pastor.
Yeah.
And January 1st, 2020, you walked back through the doors, that same institution as the 10th president, 41 years after you graduated from it. Do
Yeah.
you look at that portrait every day?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What's the meaning as you pull that in? How does that impact your work day in and day out?
So my father told me this when I received the call to come and serve as CSP's president. My father was never directive in my life. And in fact, my father passed away on February 6th. And on
Mm,
Monday of this week, we celebrated his life.
mm.
73 years as a pastor. So
Oh my
he
goodness.
he whooped grandpa.
Oh, praise.
I'm here 54 years. Yeah, grandpa.
Oh my
But dad 73. I don't know what that means for me. But dad said, Brian, you have to accept the call. This is the family alma mater. This is the
Mm,
family alma mater. So it's not just
mm.
yours, it's the family. Grandpa started here in 1911. So if we go from 1911 until today, there are only 14 years in the history of the institution where our family has not had some kind of involvement or engagement. So it is absolutely, Joe, the honor and thrill of a lifetime to serve at this amazing place.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That just like, the gravitas of that is
Yeah.
makes you take a breath. There's wow, which is, a lot of cool stuff, but this is a whoa. That's a like whoa, like awe. That's
Mhm.
palpable. Um, yeah, we're gonna wrap this up pretty soon, but I want to talk about November 2025. The Lutheran Church Missouri Synod completed a formal visitation of
Yeah.
CSP, right? affirmed you without any concerns. So there's an accreditation, I guess, process, not just for
Right.
programs, but I guess for presidents too. I never realized that. But recognizing the Christ-centered mission, the culture, the leadership, but you yourself publicly said higher education is fragile. It is kind of brittle right now, and every institution must diversify revenue. We got to innovate differently. We've got to stay mission focused. And that's not a critic. That's just you.
Mhm.
That's not some outside body saying that. That is you. So
Right.
where does this model? Where does it break for most people? Where does it break for the other leaders that aren't seeing the increase in enrollment, that aren't seeing that fluid nature of change at the rate of culture?
So I think there's a part of it is how is the institution thinking from the internal perspective, thinking about the external? And if the institution internally is primarily thinking internally, it's going to be a real rough go
I
in the
agree.
years ahead. If, however, the institution from the internal perspective is thinking externally, it's a whole different dynamic. So my sense is, and again, I
Mm,
don't know all 3 or 4,000 institutions, but it seems to me that one of our keys to success has been internally to constantly think about the external. And that has led to all kinds of incredible opportunities. And we have continually said, there are some things we're just not good at. So we're not going to do those things. We're going to
interesting.
find partners to help us do those things. And I think that's one example of the internal thinking about the external, as opposed to saying, well, we're really good at everything, so let's try to do everything. We've just made the admission, yep, some things we're not good at. We're not going to do those. We're going to have partners to help us do those things.
Let me ask, this is a maybe a personal question, personal as it relates to my curiosity, but I'm wondering, can a university double in size and still stay spiritually coherent?
Yeah, I believe that it can. I believe that it can. And in fact, the report that you referenced, I think, bears that out. So a couple of years ago, we decided to create a second division or divide our administration of the university into two divisions. So we have CSP, and CSP focuses primarily on trad undergrad, and CSP Global that then focuses more or mostly on our online delivery. We wanted to make sure we were resourcing both effectively, not to put each in a silo, but to make sure as we looked at what we were delivering, who was delivering, how we were delivering, we were adequately resourcing both. As we did that, we said, but at the center, and if I could show you a picture of our strategic plan, at the center of the donut hole is Christ-centered Lutheran. So it doesn't matter if we're working on CSP or we're working on CSP Global, the core is the same. The core is the same. Our mission is the same. Our vision is the same. Our promise is the same. And when those same things are infused, we get a similar result.
I can tell you as former faculty or adjunct faculty that that is so very evident, even in the scope and the sequence of programs. It is embedded. It's not
Right.
necessarily a seminar class, although you do
Right.
have
Right.
some of those. It is an integration of community values that are definitely centric on things that have been timeless to
Well, and
CSPs.
again, Joe, there are 101 anecdotes, but sometimes an example is helpful. So here's a recent one. The dean of the College of Nursing came to the chair of the department theology and said, could we take this 3 credit theology course and break it into or 3 hour theology course, could we break it into 3 1 credit segments and disperse it across the curriculum so that it's more applicable to the program that the students are in? And in some institutions, I mean,
No.
it would be like saying a 4 letter word in church that's not prayer, Lord. But here,
Yes.
the chairman of the theology department said, hey, that's a great idea. Let's work on that. So
Wow.
there's just so much of that
Wow.
boundarylessness amongst our team that, I mean, it's a thrill to be part of and to see it work.
Well, that macro culture is developed by the office of the president, so I'm going to give you a lot of credit, and you're gonna stay
Yeah.
humble. I totally understand that, but it cascades down. It has a coefficient effect all the way down throughout the entire organization, so it does not surprise me. Does not surprise me. Okay, now, little lightning round. You ready
Okay,
you ready to have some fun?
I'm taking a deep breath.
Okay. How about, we gotta keep you human. We've gotta keep you a quote that you live by, Doc.
Quote that I live by: "To live is Christ, to die is gain."
Mm, mm. How about the worst advice that you've heard in leading people?
Well, I'll try to distill it to advice from a faculty member from decades ago who said to me, "The faculty is the college."
We're just gonna let that hang for a minute. Okay. Um, in all fairness, we better what's the best advice? Best advice that you've adopted into leading people, into your leading people strategies?
See the people. See the people.
All of them, not just faculty. Okay. How about an unpopular opinion that you are really eager to defend? He's thinking.
Yeah. Move to the blue shark uninfested water.
There's
Move to
some
the
deep
blue water, the blue sky. Don't stay in the red.
ah, go to the open areas. Yes.
Open areas. Open areas.
I gotta it will okay, that's deep. How about a some place where you've changed your mind recently?
So this is a personal one. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, totally.
So Lori and I have an opportunity to take an in quotes free trip. The options: Alaska, Hawaii. And without telling one another, we each changed our mind from Alaska to Hawaii. Couldn't make a bad choice. We think we might have made a better choice for us for now.
I don't think you could have that's like chocolate chip and oatmeal raisin to me. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. There you go.
you can't go wrong. Can't
No,
go wrong there.
no, no.
Brian, if you weren't running that university, what would you be doing today?
I would be in Omaha, Nebraska with our 9-year-old grandson and our 5-year-old granddaughter, Lydia. Lori's there now, and I would be playing with the grandkids.
He's not going anywhere anytime soon, folks, but yes, yeah, we can tell where his values are. How about a word that would describe CSP's future?
I'm going to cheat
Mhm.
because it involves a hyphen.
Okay.
Christ centered. Christ centered.
Amen. Can't go wrong. Never can. Never. How about a question, in all fairness, a question you have for me?
So you have this wonderful tagline, Joe. It says, empowering busy leaders to build teams that deliver better results. And then in your tagline, you highlight leaders, teams, results. Which of those three words is most important to you?
I don't believe that your chair is most impactful in seeing the level and the degree of change that you've seen across your institution. Your chair is most responsible, I think, for believing and equipping and empowering your team to do the unthinkable work that you've been doing. So definitely that word right in the middle. It's all about team.
I love that. I
Yeah,
love that, Joe.
yeah. Any last words, Doc, of encouragement uh, to this congregation, if you will, before we sing our recessional hymn? There's a lot of people out there in your
Yeah,
role that are bearing a heavy, heavy
yeah.
cross, if you will, a burden,
Right.
a
Yeah.
struggle.
Right.
Any
Right.
words of encouragement that you
Yeah.
would give?
Well, at the end of the day, for me, for us, the greatest joy I have is our students and seeing them grow,
Mm,
learning how they think, learn what they're thinking about, and just to be present and engaged with them. And it doesn't matter if they're working on a 2-year degree or they're working on a PhD, it's just a thrill to engage with our students. And at the end of the day, especially the hard days, knowing the benefit and blessing, the impact we're having on students is what gets me up the next morning ready to go for another day of serving.
The students are the non-negotiable.
They are. They're
Always
so
have,
great.
always
So
will.
great. Yeah.
Reverend, doctor, everybody, here's the lesson, I guess, that we can pull from this. If you're leading an institution and you're tuning in right now, the question isn't really whether growth is possible. You've seen, and maybe you've
Yeah.
been struggling with just trying to figure out your success system. It's really this. When do you actually believe about your people that you're supposed to serve? It's that belief system that should compel you to do the, like we heard today. No, let's double down. Let's go from 5,000 to 10. That belief system does not happen unless you've got something that you have in common that you're looking at. So I hope that that is your signal. There's a lot of noise out there, folks, but I hope that that is your signal today. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks, Joe. And maybe one more PS. We so here focus on faith over fear. And that
Mm.
beautifully summarizes what you just said, faith over fear. And it's so easy to get caught in the fear trap.
Yeah, so true. We can learn more at csp.edu. That's the show, folks. Peace and stay healthy.
Thanks, Joe.